Good morning. Thank you very much.
Just first, before we just talk about the significance of this day and what Nelson Mandela Foundation is thinking of how to mark it, just when you look back, just broadly, and you think of this day, what does it mean?
Look, the day means that we always have to look back and say, lest we forget that there were sacrifices that were made for us to be here. We should never believe those that just say it was just a miracle. We should always remember that there were sacrifices, there were people who lost their lives, and some even lost their times with their families. Madiba lost 27 years, but others lost lives. And I remember this day, I was a young person back home in Kuma, in Stelfontein, back in the northwest, and we were stuck, glued to the TV to see that moment. And I just remember it took too long.
Yeah, there was a lot of tension in the country, from what I recall, from the 2nd of February when F.W. de Klerk announced in Parliament that the ANC and other political organizations were being unbanned and that Nelson Mandela would be released on the 11th of February. Those 9 days were very tense. I was outside the country. I was in exile still at the time. We were also glued on television. And there was tension because we actually didn't trust the apartheid regime to say that, will he really be released? Was it the same kind of feeling you remember yourself being on the ground in Stilfontein as a young person?
Yeah, I just remember that it was too long. And even the day itself was just taking too long for it to happen. And I think, again, it tells us a story, as we say in our statement, that lest we forget that we have to do something about that wait. There are still many people who are still waiting, Tata Moyana, for that day to come. It hasn't come yet because they are still in some form of prison. Inequality is the greatest form of imprisonment that people feel, poverty that people feel every day.
And then, of course, 1990 leading up to 94, election time. This is the 25th anniversary of that democracy. Those years were very tough, and Nelson Mandela was very central in negotiating as much a peaceful transition as he could, because we cannot forget the Buipatong massacre that happened in 1992.
Yeah, and again, the blood that was shed those years. We hosted the launch of a documentary, The Bloody Miracle. And we took it with my colleague Vern Harris, we took it to Sol Plaatje University in the Northern Cape. And I remember that the young people in the audience didn't realize how much was lost in terms of lives of people. And a couple of them shed tears when they saw the documentary, because we don't tell that story enough.
There was a promise, though, when Mandela walked out of prison. There was this big promise for us of this new, better future. You're sitting today, 25 years on, and in his legacy, he did his part, but you look back now and you just wonder where we might have gone wrong. What is Nelson Mandela's Foundation's view about why that promise has not been fulfilled?
I think we lingered. Having gotten our hard-won freedom, we lingered. The second thing is we let corruption take over, be rooted in our system so much that we forgot that we must uproot it. Even today, we have to work hard to then uproot that. Inequality, poverty and inequality, the two major factors that will bring us down as a country. Youth alienation. But then the unfinished business of the Truth Commission.
The TRC.
The TRC. We need to also be saying to ourselves, what have we done to those who are victims? We hosted, you were aware, actually, I think saw you at that event where we hosted one of the events where we were saying, what do we need to do to bring constitutionalism and healing back into our system? And the sad reality is, after we hosted that, I received a lot of calls of people who said, I'm one of them, who didn't get any justice from the Truth Commission.
So transformation of our society remained as urgent as ever it was.
And the sad thing is, we're too relaxed about it. And we're poisoning the future in the process, because those who are born into that that difficulty of South Africa that they don't know as free.
Now, very briefly, Tata Hatang, before you go, now to honor that legacy of Nelson Mandela and other leaders and all those who've sacrificed, sometimes with the highest price, with their lives for our freedom. Today, 25 years into our democracy, what should we do?
We must go back to the basics and finish the unfinished business of the Truth Commission. We were so happy to see that former commissioners of the Truth Commission called on President Ramaphosa to do something about the recommendations of the Truth Commission. And we're saying if Ndate Advocate Dumisani Ntsebeza, if people like Mary Burton can come back and say, you need to do something, P.S. Bigu, they're saying do something about those recommendations. We have no reason to relax. We must do something about those recommendations. The key to what President Ramaphosa has been saying over and over is create employment so that those who are alienated feel that they are included. The alienation in our society is too deep. And until such time that each one of us take responsibility for that country we want to see, hope will dwindle and will continue to dwindle.
Okay, so fully implement the recommendations of the TRC and create those much needed jobs for our young people. Some of the things that Ndate Sello Hatang, the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, says we still have to do urgently as we honor the legacy and the memory of Nelson Mandela, who was released on this day, 11th of February 1990, after 27 years of incarceration by the racist apartheid regime.